this morning. So, gentlemen seated there this month, permit me to use this medium to recognize Right Honorable Barrister Lego Idebo. He happens to be the chairman House Committee on Local Content and Monitoring Committee. And also Senator Dr. Aliu Sabi Abdullahi, whoever order of the Republic of Nigeria, Deputy Chairman Senate Committee on Local Content. A couple of few minutes is going to join us as we're about to kickstart a wonderful event this morning. Once again, if you're meeting me for the first time, my name is Dr. Radio, CFR, comedian of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I think I deserve a round of applause. Yes.
We pray. Almighty God, creator and ruler of heaven and earth, we beseech thee to inspire and guide all our counsels and actions so that we may always work in the path of justice, love, and charity to one another. Help us with thy grace to do all those things that will promote peace, unity, happiness, and prosperity of Nigeria. Amen.
All right, the next on the program is the national anthem. The distinguished senators and honorables, please, I would like us to be upstanding as we're about to take the national anthem. Are you ready, Mr. DJ? Thank you so much. Okay, to move next on the program, which is the welcoming participants, distinguished senators. At this point, I believe we're good to go. And on this note, I would like to use this medium to bring up somebody to come up and give us what I believe is the right thing that needs to be done, which is the formal holding of the event of the introduction of the participants. But before then, ladies and gentlemen, please permit me, as I'm about to invite a distinguished Senate President for the wonderful opening remark. So, ladies and gentlemen, please permit me as I welcome our wonderful Senate President. If your hands are not too busy, please jump those hands as I present to you Alhaji Ibrahim Lawal, President of the Senate, Chairman of the National Assembly, Federal Republic of Nigeria. Please, if your hands are not too busy.
Good morning to everyone. Mr. President, Senate has asked me to say what I'm going to be here this morning. He has other engagements, so I'm going to be speaking for him, for myself. So the Vice Chairman, all distinguished members of the Senate, Committee on Local Content. The Chairman and honorable members of the House Committee on Nigerian Content Development. My brother, Honorable the Executive Secretary, NCDNB, management staff, resource persons, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure and honor to welcome you to this retreat organized by the joint committees of the Senate and House of Representatives in collaboration with the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, NCDNB. This retreat is organized to enable us to have an in-depth knowledge of the mandate of NCDNB, its Government Act, identify areas of amendments and understanding how society functions. The decision to hold this retreat outside Abuja is a deliberate one to enable us to focus on the process of learning and building our capacity to perform our legislative duties. Therefore, I encourage all participants to use this opportunity to learn from this retreat. Distinguished colleagues and honorable members, you're all aware that oil and gas sector is a dominant sector of our economy, and hence the need to pay special attention to the activities of the sector. With the dwindling revenue accruing to the government of the Federation from other key sectors of the economy, the enforcement of the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Content Development Act 2010 will enhance in-country value creation and retention and generate employment for Nigerians across the industry value chain. While we acknowledge the investment of the international oil companies, OICs, we have a responsibility as a legislature to protect Nigerian interests. Since our inauguration, we have sought to significantly add value to the local content initiative, increase the impact and enforcement of the Logic Act, as well as work with NCDN for the greater fulfillment of its mandates in the overall interest of all Nigerians. Distinguished senators and members, we have noticed the achievements of the board in its years of driving the local content, key amongst which are the creation of an enabling environment for indigenous companies to strive in the oil and gas industry, promotion of knowledge transfer, which has increased the role of Nigerians in the sophisticated industry, deepening in-country technical capacity in the oil and gas industry, ensuring Nigerian content implementation through the mobilization of appropriate tools, policies, and frameworks, increasing industry contributions to the national GDP and facilitating access of Nigerian goods and services to regional markets, more particularly the landmark achievement of the board in introducing the Nigerian Content Intervention Fund. We will therefore continue to collaborate with NCDNB in understanding the challenges of the regulators and the industry at large with a view to provide necessary legislative support for the board's drive to enforce the Logic Act. In a bid to develop laws and policies to support the local content initiative, distinguished senators and honorable members, and I wish to know that we have inaugurated a technical committee to commence the review of the Logic Act 2010 to increase its relevance to current industry realities and, more importantly, expand its scope to cover other line sectors. Their reports will be submitted and considered by our committees for further legislative actions. Distinguished colleagues and honorable members, let me welcome you once again to this strategic capacity building retreat. I believe that by the end of this program, we would have received valuable knowledge that will aid our committees to conduct effective oversight, review the Logic Act 2010, and and render legislative support that will assist NCDME in realizing its mandate. I hope that this retreat inspires ideas and discussions around the ways that we can make our legislative duties better. At this point, we want to acknowledge the support of the Executive Secretary, Cindy, Engineer Cindy, NCDME, his team, and resource persons for making this program a reality. I wish you all a successful celebration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Stephen Konawole, for that. Thank you for joining us this once again for him. All right. The next on the program is the keynote address by House Committee Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, please permit me, as I'm about to bring up Right Honorable Barrister Lego Idabo, Chairman, House Committee on Content Development.
Thank you very much. Others go to camp to prepare for the season as committees, very important committees, both at the Senate and at the House level. We've come to camp in Lagos for a few days to prepare for the task that lies ahead, which is oversighting local content, Nigerian content in the oil and gas sector. Let me commend the Executive Secretary NCDME and the board for their giant strides in enforcing compliance with the NOICD Act. There are few examples that will blow our minds. I know that in the course of the lectures that we'll receive in the next couple of days while we're here, it will broaden our understanding into what local content is all about. But let me commend the board for what they've done thus far. There are examples like that of Oil Serve, a totally Nigerian company that latched in on the provisions of the Act and policies of the board to be beneficiaries of the longest gas pipeline in Nigeria today. And not only that, they've gone ahead to win a contract for an even longer gas pipeline, which is the Kaduna-Kano gas pipeline. It's something worthy of commendation. But are they gaps? To my mind, yes, they are. And why do I say they are gaps? If you look at the contributions from the oil sector to our GDP today, in Nigeria, the oil industry contributes less than 10% to our GDP. Whereas this is a sector that will generate over 65% of our revenue. Local content comes in to ensure that the complete value chain of the revenue you generate from the sector are trapped in country. Therein, to my mind, lies the gap. Angola, today, which is the second highest oil producer in Africa, is able to trap 50% of the revenue they generate in country as contributions to GDP. I've had cause to say this in a forum, and ES disagreed with me and probably tried to throw some more insights. We'll hear him out and we'll be the judge of what it really is. But I think that as we commend the board, let us note that there's room for improvement. One of what we are trying to do as a committee, which I think the Chairman Senate Committee mentioned, is expansion of the Act to cover other sectors. Whilst we are saying that we've not done enough, or it's not Uhuru yet in the oil sector, there are other sectors that are suffering seriously. I give you an example: solid minerals. I've had cause to tell this story before. The Association of Miners came to pay me a courtesy call, and they said the Chinese have driven the Nigerians out of business as it concerns mining and solid minerals. I said, how so? And they told me that the prices the Chinese sell their quarry materials for, no Nigerian businessman can afford to sell for that price. And it beat me because I was wondering, how is it that the Chinese will come in all the way from China and be exploring our solid minerals here and selling for lower than what we in Nigeria would sell for? It reminded me of a story I told when I was Commissioner for Works. When I was Commissioner for Works, we were about doing the road, the Tinapa Road. For those that have come to Calabar, I'm sure you know Tinapa, the access road to Tinapa. And we tendered for it. The Chinese bid was about 12-something billion. PW, an English company, was 20-something billion. Julius Berger was 20-something billion. And the disparity in the bids was too much. So I had us to call the three parties together to find out whether they understood what the job entailed. And I asked the Chinese, your bid is 12 billion, PW's is 20-something, Julius Berger is 20-something. Why that disparity? And they said they submitted their bid. The MDPW called me to come and said, Commissioner, there is no way the Chinese can deliver this job for 12 billion. They will come for variation, and by the time they come for variation, they will surpass what we are bidding to give. But when I talked to the governor then, he said, let's fight the Chinese because we don't have the 20-something billion. Let's see how it goes. And we gave that job to CECC. That road was completed in due time. They never asked for variation, and the road is still sitting today. So when we commissioned the road, I had us to call the FDCs to a corner and said, you need to explain to me how you were able to achieve this project with this amount. Because the MDPW told me it was impossible for this project to be achieved with that amount. And he said to me, Commissioner, our model is different. That CCC is not government owned, it's owned by individuals or supported by the government. That we collect loans from the Chinese government interest free, as in 0% interest. And in the agreement we signed with the Chinese government, all equipment we use must be bought from a particular Chinese company. So the Chinese government is collecting the interest component of the loan given to them from that company in form of taxes to the company. So it's win-win for them. There is also a policy. Because of their population, the Chinese government has realized that they cannot create jobs for all their teeming population in country. So they have a policy to create jobs for them outside the shores of China. And how do they do that? They agree with these companies that they support to get these businesses outside China, that you will take the Chinese laborers. There is also a prison reform system in China. They won't tell you what it exists, where their prisoners to be rehabilitated are sent offshore outside China to do menial jobs, so they can crash their labor costs using these policies. That is how the Chinese are able to crash their prices, and you cannot compete with them no matter what. To my mind, that is thinking outside the box. Because once we are doing local content, the Chinese, the Indians are coming to Nigeria and implementing their own local content here. So I charge NCDMA and I charge all of us as we come for this retreat. Let it not be business as usual. Let's come up with an action plan that sees us thinking outside the box. That is the only way we can be competitive against the Chinese and competitive against the Indians and the rest of them, even the Koreans. And let us think outside the box and build our Nigerian companies. We can't hit our chest saying that our Nigerian companies are doing well because of one large contracts in Nigeria. Let us build them to turn into multinationals. The word IOCs does not exempt Nigerian companies from being IOCs. I want to hear that a company that started from the scratch, like Oil said, won a contract in China, in Asia, in Dubai, in USA. Only then will I commend the board 100% that they have done well. Yes, I thank you. I know you have that in mind. I commend you for your Project 100 and the Project 100 initiative, which I'm sure the years will talk about things along those lines. So, honorable members, distinguished senators, as we've come here today, let all hands be on deck. Let's listen to the lectures. Let's prepare, just like I said, like footballers that want to go and play for the season. We prepare. Let's be committed, so that once we're done with this retreat, we will commence our oversight. And in oversighting, I always use the word, we will not take prisoners. We will ensure that the proper thing is done in terms of ensuring Nigerian and local content. For those that are cooperative, we will partner with you, we will work with you. When you have challenges, we will work and see how we can overcome those challenges. I commend the relationship I have, or we have, myself and the senator have on the board. It's a robust relationship that can ensure that we deliver in terms of local content. But above the relationship is the mutual respect and understanding we both have, particularly understanding that we all play a critical role in this sector. None can do without the other. Once again, I commend everybody and I thank everybody. Please let's pay apt attention to this retreat, and at the end of the day, I know Nigeria will be better for it. Thank you and God bless you.
The Chairman, Senate Committee on Local Content, distinguished Senator Teslim Forai, Chairman, House Committee on Local Content, Honorable Lego Bidako, distinguished Senators, Honorable Members of the House of Representatives, I say good morning to you all. First, let me say that I've been around for a while and observing the National Assembly. And in all these years that I've been around, I've actually not had the opportunity to have the senators and members of the House of Representatives in a room for this kind of important discourse. So this is first for me. And please, I congratulate you for that. I think it shows a different dynamics in this current assembly where both the Senate and the House have decided to work together for the progress of our dear country, Nigeria. Let me also recognize my colleagues on the board of NCDFB, both management staff and other staff here present. I think a lot of my directors are also here. I think they are here primarily to also answer any of those very difficult questions that will be thrown at the board, just in case there is provision for that. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me also apologize at this point for coming in slightly late. I had some challenges in terms of logistics. I sincerely apologize. I'm one of those who is very, if you like, strong on keeping time. I recall the past chairman of local content in the Senate. I had to be dragging Solomon at any point in time to make sure we start activities on time. I'm happy he's also seated here today. So my sincere apologies to distinguished senators and honorable members. I think this for me is a very short opening remark, and I think the German Senate Committee and the House has been able to, if you like, put in small words the purpose with which we are here today. As the board is to provide the necessary information as will be desired by this honorable gathering, is also to answer some of the questions that will enable the senators and the honorable members take a decision in the process of their lawmaking. So we will be very willing to do that. But before I go ahead, let me just take on some of the issues that the Chairman House Committee on Local Content have put on the table. First is the story of the Chinese being able to deliver projects at half the price of other multinationals and international companies. Just to remind you, Chairman, this same strategy was used in the early 70s and early 80s by the Germans. When Julius Berger came into Nigeria years back, they were adequately funded by the German government because they also created a strategy where they wanted the Germans after the Second World War also to go out and create jobs and also add value to their country. So in terms of loans, in terms of equipment, they were supplied at no cost. That was how they established themselves until Julius Berger eventually became a Nigerian company listed in the stock exchange. So some of those moves are very strategic in its nature. And of course, I don't want to go into the diplomatic discourse of why the Chinese decided to take some of those strategies. Of course, it's to establish a foothold in Nigeria and in Africa. That's why today, if you go around Africa, there is no country that you can't find them because they planted themselves through that strategy in itself. So hence, why you are having those interest-free loans and even sending the Chinese prisoners to come and do jobs in Africa. Most African countries that you see today, you see a lot of them. The second is about the gross domestic product of Angola. Let me be clear again, because I hinted the chairman that the data you have perhaps is taken out of context. In Angola, you have Ministry of Petroleum Resources merged with the mines. Ministry of Mines is also part of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. They don't have Ministry of Petroleum Resources and then solid minerals. No, they are together. And they've been in the mining business for a very long time. There's no precious metal you will ask for that you don't get in Angola, including gold, diamond, and the rest. And you know, those businesses employ a lot of people in terms of mining. In addition to that, you have a lot of artisanal mining. So when you aggregate that and you take the Ministry of Petroleum and Solid Minerals together, you then shoot up your gross domestic product, which shows you the number of people you are able to employ and add value to the country, as opposed to in Nigeria, where you have the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and then you have solid minerals separate. But I can assure you, if you combine both, you probably get figures greater than what you have in Angola. Today, Angola is very keen on trying to learn from us how we've been able to push the boundaries of local content in the African continent. I was in Angola, invited by the Minister of Petroleum and Solid Minerals in November to sit with his entire team, the entire ministry officials and leadership, up to about 600 people, in order to tell them the progress we have made and how they should get where we are today. So I make bold to say, in Africa, the local content we are implementing is a model that everybody is wanting to come and understand. On the back of NIPS, which happened last week, I met with the delegation from Mali, who are keen on wanting us to help them push local content in that country. We have had visitations from Kenya, visitations from Uganda, and visitations from most African countries, Senegal, trying to understand how we have progressed local content and the successes we have recorded here. Most of the times, Nigerians, we tend to underrate our achievements. I can tell you, Mr. Chairman and distinguished senators, we are leading the pack in terms of local content development in Africa and globally. Mr. Chairman, distinguished senators, let me believe that by the end of this retreat, like you said, we would have told each other the truth and we would have committed ourselves as a people on how we want to create jobs for teeming Nigerian population, because today you can't even take record of the rate at which our population is growing. We're having increased number of youths who are leaving university and leaving schools looking for jobs. We're having Nigerian businesses who want to grow beyond where they are. I am sure we're all aware of what is happening globally, where people are being banned left, right, and center. Very soon, all our children that we perhaps have spent our scarce resources to send out of this country will begin to come back because the opportunities are getting limited where they've got to study. So how do we change that paradigm? How do we commit ourselves on what we have to do as a people to move this dear nation forward? And I believe this rests with all of us gathered here to think differently, to think as Nigerians, and not to think otherwise on how we enhance local content development. Some of us have been very passionate about this subject for God knows how long. I remember when I started working for Shell in 1991 as a field engineer. We were told in those days that you cannot go beyond a particular level as a Nigerian. Your limit is a supervisor. For us, we saw that as the ultimate in terms of our career, despite all the degrees that we have accumulated. But over time, things started changing. Some of us got promoted to a certain level we never imagined because we thought that was the exclusive reserve of experts. I make bold to say that today, most of the international oil companies are being managed by Nigerians. Most of the independent operators and indigenous companies are being run totally by Nigerians, and they are doing very well. A good example is Seplat. When they bought the acreage from Shell, they were producing 20,000 barrels when Shell sold that acreage. But today, Seplat is doing about 75,000 barrels per day, which shows you that there is an improvement, and if Nigerians are given the opportunity, they will do a lot better. That is just one example that I'm citing. If you like, values of the board, one of it is patriotism. For you to drive local content, you must be patriotic and you must stand for the truth. I therefore urge us all to focus on those keywords of being patriotic, believing in our country, creating value for our country, and moving our country beyond where it is today. And I believe these 2 days will provide us that opportunity. Once again, on behalf of myself and members of my team, I welcome distinguished senators, honorable members of the House of Representatives to this 2-day discourse. I recall during the last assembly, we had a similar session with the Senate. I think Adeola was the chairman then, but it was limited in terms of the number of people that sat around, and we had a very useful discussion which helped us in the delivery of the value that we have brought about in the past 1 year. And I believe that at the end of this session, we will also be energized and have the impetus to take it beyond where it is today. Once again, thank you very much and welcome to this session. Thank you.
creative and constructive development is urgent. And so we need to put our oil into power, into mind, into water, into health, and transportation. So why do we have other content in my own mind? It is required now so that we can have a whole economy. We can deploy the resources that we have to bring back our economy to the template that it's supposed to be. And in my own mind, I feel that national development is possible when we are able to devote these resources for Nigerians and by Nigerians. The strategic focus of the NOICD is to integrate all producing community into the oil and gas value chain and to foster institutional collaboration. It's also to maximize participation of Nigerians in oil and gas activity. Link oil and gas sector to the sector of the economy and maximize utilization of Nigerian resources, goods and services, and expectedly to attract investment to Nigerian oil and gas sector, service provider, equipment and supply. So we move away from the critical stakeholders of the oil and gas for knowledge. The local content need to work together in the effort with every stakeholders to be able to achieve its strategic objective. These are for knowledge and they're there. And in a typical oil and gas, we have the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream. Giving an overview of the oil and gas, these are just for knowledge, and it's beginning to you in soft copy. And we also have the oil playing a critical role in the oil and gas. It's just a casual mention of all the people that play as an overview of oil and gas for knowledge. The PIB is also very critical in oil and gas in Nigeria. We've had in the past several efforts by the Senate committees, both upstream and downstream, reviewing PIB in different environments, both in Nigeria and outside the country, making comparative study. We saw the Sister Assembly making their efforts. We also saw the Senate Assembly making their own efforts. We are gaining ground, but it's not been translated to reality. That the 8th Assembly, with the effort they are able to put in place, consolidate on all the effort that was had. And hopefully, this present Assembly will be able to dot all the T's and the I's, working with the presidency. These are efforts that we made on PIB in the past, both local, international, so many efforts have been made. And some challenges in the oil and gas. Respond to the new discovery of oil in Africa and somewhere else. Low domestic gas utilization, gas to power issue. These are critical issues. The PIB issue is yet to be finally resolved. The local content issue is why we are here. And we are hoping that at the end of this conference, we will achieve a marriage. The institutional with overlapping roles, this is being handled and fixed. Low institutional capacity, with the drive and the energy that local content is putting in place, we are hoping that this low institutional capacity will be fixed. And no contribution to GDP, as I mentioned in the opening talks. By the time local content is on the template and is driving the economy faster than we ever knew, this will have been tweaked. Then there's poor performance in the key sectors because oil has not been internalized into the other sector properly, the way it's supposed to be deployed. We are having an issue with royalty. I think the National Assembly is handling that. And all these challenges, just giving an overview of some of our challenges in the oil and gas. And we have some risk that is facing us in this industry. And the delay in the passing of PIB is one of the risks that is facing us. We are hoping that this assembly will be able to come together and ensure that this is done properly. There's a sharp drop in price of crude. And on top of that, the market is narrowing. And there's continuous retention of subsidy, we need to tighten up. Gas sharing, there's new energy coming on board, and everyone is beginning to ask for clean energy. It's one of the issues we need to deal with in oil and gas. And we have inactive refineries. USA is very hot in oil and gas production. This may be facing us and staring us in the face. And there's emergence of new and clean energy that the whole world is campaigning for. We don't have to sit back and look. We need to connect to this vision and this drive. And several other issues that are facing us. Some reason why the future of oil may be different from the past. We've enjoyed oil and gas in Nigeria. It has done a lot for us. We've done some developments and we're seeking some, but there are some challenges before I wrap up that are facing us. And number one, climate change. Climate change is a serious matter, not as much as we take it. It is more serious than we take it. We need to be more aware and we need to be more strategic and creative in handling climate change. clean energy is also a major challenge that will be facing this sector in the next few years. If we don't urgently come up with strategy that can respond to it. Technology is also blowing hot in oil and gas. I hope we are responding to it. People are buying charging companies and cars are coming out. Electric cars are coming out. Electric equipment are coming out. And many industries may stop buying equipment that we use our forces. So we need to start thinking faster than we were doing before. Energy efficiency is out and blowing hot. Several countries have embraced it. And there's increased awareness. Conferences are being held on new efficiency of energy. And so we need to connect. These are issues we need to start discussing so that it doesn't slow us down. There's oil and gas insecurity. The United States, the big globe, is still hanging in the ecosystem globally. Ghana, oil and gas, close up to us, is growing and moving on the fast way. We need to know. We cannot sit on our bar and just be watching. We need to know what are they doing. They are doing strategy, they are holding conferences, and they are next door. It will impact on our markets. Some of the IOCs are already going to Ghana to invest. They are going to the waters and all of those. So we need to wake up and begin to look at this area. I'm just highlighting some of the challenges that will be sharing us. And so all of us need to be on the same page. The union, the investors, the NOCs, the IOC, we need a forum where we can come together to discuss. We need the PIB to be passed. The executive need to see what everybody is saying. The National Assembly need to be on the same page with them. So we can still correct some of our errors. The oil is still flowing after all. All stakeholders must come together to make it work. Nigerian food economic emancipation is possible, and local content is here, and this is the time that we need to discuss it. And so, as I said, climate, and give an overview of the oil and gas, expectedly, when presentations start coming up, I want us to discuss and bring up numbers and templates that are scientific enough for us to target the new goals. So where do we go from here? The future of oil will be different from its past. The Stone Age did not end for the lack of stone. And the oil age will end long before the world runs out of oil. This must be ringing in our brain. My thoughts for local content, my desire for local content, my passion and determination to support this meeting.
The challenges that you mentioned, so many of them, climate change, emergence of clean energy technology, energy efficiency, awareness, insecurity in the Nigerian oil sector, etc. And it is like you concluded suggesting that the PID, the petroleum industry team, will address all of these challenges. Is that right? Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you so much. I also listen to my presentation concerning the start of the presentation. Yeah, my name, I didn't say it was someone at the other level. I said, like a spirit, our former chairman said it from his department chairman, said it from his own department. Yes, why has everybody identified PIP as the only solution in oil and gas sector? 2. What is the future of local content? Capacity or the PIP into law. 3. What do we intend to achieve
as a country by passing this particular industry bill into law. Thank you.
My question has to do with the scenario of no oil, no Nigeria. That is a very serious issue, very deep. And I think beyond the idea of developing our local content to address the oil and gas industry, the question I would like to ask is, alongside this reality of a world fast moving out of oil and gas industry, so to say, because everybody is talking about clean energy, and the projection is that for the oil, it's expected that people will start moving out of oil in the context of energy, and gas will be more or less like, I think, something that should have a future for Nigeria, given that we are told Nigeria has an abundance of gas reserve, from which we are even flaring so much of it. So the question I want to ask is, what can be done to tap the local capacity that you are developing? Because the idea of local content is to develop local capacity. What can we do to now go beyond the present industry in terms of this pool of knowledge and skills and capabilities, in a manner that as we diversify our economy, we can bring in some of these, pool of resources to have preparing of other sectors? Is this a plausible strategy, given the fact that we're looking at the future in terms of the projections you are making?
I just wanted to make some comments. I listened to all the issues you but for you speak to the political will and structural balances that are required to achieve the kind of environment we project. We are looking at Nigeria. What is the necessary political will, character, quality of leadership, and the structural political environment or context that will enable us to achieve what we are projecting? Thank you.
My name is I read that one of the issues you raised in your presentation was that's the I remember when I was in the industry, we were supposed to talk by 2008. That was the next event. And as we speak, we see we're still faring that So what do you think should be done to ensure whatever they have to do 2009 to stop the gas in Nigeria? Is that achievable? If we are not achieving 2008, can it be achieved in 2030? And what are the factors in between this mobility of the gas? Thank you.
My name is member of this committee. I would like to know the challenges and problems in the Nigerian Control Board. Thank you.
My name is
It's both management, the boss, both management, explosion to some sort of, global economic grants. But also know that, as well as they are operating within a slightly economic climate, slightly socio-economic climate.
I want to ask the committee, what are those impediments that I posed? I'm asking what are those those impediments that stifling Nigeria stifling social political environment as opposed on their work to the extent that you will say they're not able to act optimally or to run their business optimally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Henry Hachiko. I represent the one of my colleagues said something about the political will. Now, I've always wondered, because everybody feels that, and most people feel that once the BID has been signed, the problem of us maximizing everything about oil is over. Now, my problem is, if we sign the petroleum industry deal today, and we don't have security in the country, who is going to invest in oil? And then I keep asking myself, several years, we've had turnaround maintenances and we've not been able to succeed in getting our refineries to run. And then suddenly, one man is able to put up a refinery, and the government of the government has not been able to put up a refinery for us to make good use of all that we have as far as oil is concerned. Is it because there is lack of political will? Because that's very, very key as far as the oil sector is concerned. Because as far as I'm concerned, there is disparity when it comes to the running of the oil industry. Thank you very much.
I just to take it from where Prof. Ihondoro spoke before, to add to what Honorable said. I am Sedis Ogun. I represent Eastern North East, Eastern South East, and Edo State. Honorable Lebo, our chairman, in his statements, mentioned the contract with the Chinese in the Tinapa project. They are already executing their own local content. And what that has told us here today is funding is required for the local companies. And that to me is really the local content. Some years ago, we woke up and said, for the oil companies, those fields that you have said are too small for you to invest money in going forward, give them back to us. I will not classify them as marginal fields. The marginal field operators today are Nigerians. We'll be deluding ourselves if we think they are doing well. It's struggling. They do not have the finances. If government can put money into the industry to build local capacity, to me that would be the local content that's going on. Like Honorable Ajibon said. It's not so much of government. The lot government can do, but it's not so much of government or the law. The law can come like we have laws and nothing will happen. People will still walk around them. So my take is, if government will put money in the hands of the local operators, Nigerians, that's the way we can build local capacity. And I'm just there at it is controversial. Okay. We are wasting money in places where we do not have reserve or structure, and we are lying to ourselves. The money we are wasting drilling where we should not be drilling right now is just a waste. Put that money in the hands of Nigerians in the oil and gas industry today, and we'll boost the market.
My name is Honorable Victor, member representing the Catholic constituency. I strongly align with what my honorable brother just said, that we should pay emphasis to where we have maximum return. That's what he has said in a nutshell. If we don't depart from this political sentiments, we are not going to make any headway. That's exactly what he said, which I strongly align with him. You know, spending a lot of money carrying out studies that have been done for more than 10 years, and there's no headway, and we are still spending such money. We should look at the issue of comparative advantage. For any economy to grow, that is the guiding principle.
Because that's why we are saying that government should no longer be involved in any Sabbath investment, because government is separating themselves. All government need to do is to give enabling environment. In this case, what is the enabling environment? Because we have just got the overview of the petroleum sector. And if we are talking about this, it's not everything that government wants must be EIP. We agree that there must be a meeting point. There must be a meeting point. But to say that, let me give an example, where the policy maker will be the regulator. It's funny. In other decisions, there is a separate issue of policy maker and the man who goes to enforce. The regulator are two different things. So we should look at, somebody just made mention, said that the National Assembly is more powerful institution. Of course, that is how what it's going to be. In the Nigerian situation, it's not what it is. If we must copy from America, let us copy everything that is good about our system. Thank you.
My name is Abdullah Yes, I'm representing the York Federal Constituency of Bauchi State. Initially, I didn't want to raise a point, but with due respect to the last speaker, my boss, my mentor, I think the question is about not only economic growth. We are thinking about government is not supposed to be expanded in terms of such and what I do. To me, that is a kind of narrow mindset, because it shouldn't be only about growth. With due respect, sir, we should also be looking about development. And development tends to take care of the majority of the people in a particular ecological area. So there is nothing wrong if there are prospects in other areas. I think the government should look into that, because this thing is about reserves. Perhaps one day we may wake up and realize that our reserves have been depleted, and we might need, other areas to show up the resource base of the nation. And secondly, about the PIB, we understood that the PIB has been broken down. It has been unbundled from its original version into the PIGB and other variants of the original version. So I think energy should be put towards identifying what are the reasons, what are the hindrances around this PIB as a whole, and we must strive to build consensus in order to have the needed reform and the needed outcome that we also desire in the sector. Thank you.
What's set up strategies to cover upstream due to the work percent they take from every contract. But we need to think that as a country, what sort of plans that we have to develop and to monitor all that content of Nigeria.
So that is declared for record purposes. All right. Second, no oil in Nigeria. It was a question. I was posing a question on the board. It was not a conclusive statement. And because if oil is contributing 90% of your foreign exchange and is contributing less than 10 to your GDP, then there's need to ask questions. That's the paradox. I said the paradox of the oil economy. And I highlighted those figures. Those numbers are not helping. If you are getting 90% from a particular source of foreign exchange and it's impacting the life of the human being, not more than 10%, then there's need to ask where is the problem. So it was a question that was posed that no oil, no Nigeria. If you remember the slide I showed, you saw a country that has the connectivity of all other aspects of Nigerian life, transport, irrigation, and all that. I said we have advantage of oil, and we need to use this oil to develop all those areas. That was what I mentioned. All right, gas. Somebody mentioned gas. Yes, that's the way to go. New energy, we still need gas. But do we have a template to harvest gas? Have we developed a template to harvest our gas deposit? We don't have a functional template on how to get out gas. If we have, then it should be working. So these are, what I did was a climate setting to pop us up to be able to discuss these germane issues. That was my job. That was the job that was given to me. Then what can be done to tap the industry? For me, I think stakeholders is just about stakeholders. Like what is doing? Bringing House of Rep and Senate committee together. For me, it's a legendary performance. I mean, so that everybody can come together, bear their mind, and we resolve. I mean, we can come up with what we think is wrong, what we think is right. We debate, and we come up with what we think can help us to move forward. So I think it's okay. Infrastructural growth. For me, if you have an advantage, you should use it when it lasts. Oil is an advantage for us. Take it or leave it, it's an advantage. And I mean what I mean and what I said. Oil flow will continue to flow. We have deposits. We are discovering oil in the other part of the country. It will flow for many years. But whether we are going to have the market is thinning out. We are not conscious. Oil market is thinning out. It's a comfort. It gives us comfort because we get this flow every month, every day. It's coming in. We are producing. We are selling. People are backing out gradually, but there's no noise. That's what I'm saying. That we need to begin to think what happens if certain major buyers back out. Because we are not there. They are not in those countries. They are also thinking, as we are holding conferences, they are holding conferences on clean energy, they are looking at alternative energy. People are beginning to look at artificial moon, artificial sun. These are all energies that is taking away your own black group. They are taking it away. Once they back out, they are out. And so we need to start thinking. So my point is to ginger us to think in this conference. All right. I saw political will. Of course, this is economics. We all know that if you bring no matter how beautiful policy is in Nigeria, once it surpasses political will, it go nowhere. So the political climate, the political economy of the country is the one that drives everything. So you cannot take politics out of the economy. It doesn't matter the intelligence that you have. If you are not able to carry along the political structure and get them to your side, you may just be on the lunatic ledge. So there's need for us to do and go back to stakeholders again. These people are Nigerians. To get political will, it is to get people involved and let them see the side of our own story. I remember when we were reviewing the international track, some people did not believe what we were doing. We were in Dubai, and another one was happening somewhere, and it was different from what we were reviewing. So it's about keep talking and holding conversation with the union, with the IOCs. Let's keep engaging people until we get it right. There's no country that got it right in a day. So we must continue to do stakeholders engagement, and this is one of such. This is a serious stakeholders engagement. We should put sentiment apart and tell ourselves the truth about Nigerian economy. Until we are able to do that, we are not moving forward. All right. Gas flaring. Clean energy is coming. For me, I don't have a template for stopping gas flaring 100%. But I have an idea of how we can begin to set up a strategy for clean energy. If we're able to look at alternative energy, we may just have been reducing the tragic effects of gas flaring. Template for gas energy, of course I mentioned that. Challenges and prospects of Nigerian local content. That's the Executive Secretary and the board will speak to that. When I finish, we'll speak to that. Economic climate and template that can drive the political climate. Now, this meeting is not a political meeting, but there are politicians here and people that manage government and governments. And so if you ask me, the president is somewhere, but this is the power of Nigeria. Once decision is taken here and it is thoughtfully put together, we can present it. It can be presented. The chairman has committees here. The chairman Senate committee is here. The executive secretary is here. So when we talk about local content, everybody that matters is here. So whatever template we come out for, maybe as a communique, we can put it thoughtfully and push it to president. If we want funding, like the case of India or the Chinese, we look for a way to carry along the presidency to increase the budget of local content, and we take it off from there. That's all I can say about that. I think I have two more.
I think you yes.
Okay, let's just say the last item. Alright, I mentioned about the numbers of variables that is required to help our challenges. The first thing we need to do is to identify them and pop them off. We have a conference like this, and an overview is given, and we left something out. Those things we left out will be the problem when we finish. Things like climate change, it doesn't come to the discourse like that, but it's a serious matter. Yes, it doesn't. Oil and gas security, insecurity. Second people that we buy our oil, they stop buying. We just look away from it because we still have some existing buyers. Some people are reducing. We are just looking at it. So those are the areas where I am pained and where I brought those challenges up. It's for us to have a template for us to discuss. That was my job that was given to me, and that was what I did. So the statement I made were not emphatic, they were not conclusive, they were not mathematically exact. I didn't say that no PIB, no Nigeria. But the no oil, no Nigeria is true because it will help us to think about our comfort zone and begin to look at alternatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, presenter. Definitely, mine is a kind of observation concerning this issue of PIB, home local content. During the 8th National Assembly, there were attempts for PIB to be passed. But the major reason behind this unsuccessful mission was because it was sponsored by a member of the National Assembly, and they call it BIGB. And as you all are aware, all that is contained in that document, there were people going front and back and signing some provision in the bill. Now we're all here asking for the passage of the PIB. The content in this PIB is going to be a certain sections of that law that will be made up of local content. Because the PIB is for everything about the oil and gas sector. Provisions relating to local content will be contained in this PIB. In the same way, we, the National Assembly, have passed an act setting up the local content development development board. The question is, that's why I asked that question, what is the future of the existing act setting up local content? Now, we are also on a mission to review the existing act setting up the present local content. And we're also on a mission to pass the petroleum industry bill. I want us, as a member of local content committee of the National Assembly, to start looking in this direction to, among other things, ensure that one, the two chairmen of this distinguished committee is a member of the BIB committee, because the consideration will start any moment from now, especially the administrative aspect of the BIB. The two chairmen of the two committees must be a member. And why am I saying this? They must flow with the content of what is coming from the BIB. Let me tell you this. The NNPC doesn't want local content as it's currently well. It's a major challenge. Within the sector as it exists today, the major enemy, why you are not seeing local content performing at the expected level, is because there are so many people in that sector who don't want to be local content development monitoring board. Issues relating to local content development monitoring board are treated within the NNPC. All of these are some of the challenges that confronted us while we are chairing that particular committee. So I'm using this opportunity to draw the attention
of all of us as a member and also the two leadership of both chambers to critically monitor what is going on within the PIB. The PIB as currently has been sponsored by NNPC. So I have used this opportunity and this forum to speak on it so that we take cognizant look into what is contained in the PIB as far as local content is concerned. That's my observation. Thank you.
We have been going around Nigeria and we have been looking at all facets of activities that we have made up to the nation. And we have made reference to many nations of the world that were ahead of and they are overtaking us. And we seem to have, shifted and showed it. I want us to be honest with ourselves. I always like scientific because it's always very different. There's another point of I am saying really good statements and I was astonished. So I want us to it's a fundamental issue. If we even pass a bill and become an act, where there is no political will to say this is the way Nigeria is going to look at or be in the next 10 years, all our effort will be an effort in utility. So I want to play. You've made a point here. How will we go and discuss on the PIB bill and expected bill that will regulate the activities of the oil industry that will give birth to other sectors of the economy without the involvement of the principal officers that is serving the Senate and the House of Representatives? It won't work. So my claim is that we must start to develop a spirit of oneness, spirit of togetherness, that we know what is lacking, why Nigeria is where we are, whether it is in the oil industry, whether we have not developed our mining, soil mineral, whether we have not developed our agriculture. The common thing of that, we are here for local content. Why should Nigeria be importing Chinese laborers, Chinese technicians and engineers? Julius Baker has been here since the beginning after the Civil War, brought by somebody, and I've been a chairman until he died, probably, and we don't have anything to show. We must now look inward. We have the technical capacity. If we don't have, we must develop from the craftsman level to the highest level in engineering. Look at our Calcutta Steel Rolling Mill, line based. And we are here. We are here to do local content. And we have the capacity to move that industry to what it should be. So that our rail lines can start working. We can produce the steel that is needed. So it is a political way. So let us not waste our time. We must ensure that whatever bill we are going to enact tomorrow or in the years to come, before we do the expedition of this 9th assembly, that we carry along the presidency, we carry along Nigerians, and we must respect the will of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Importance for what my very dear brother, Honorable said, Senator said. As far as I'm concerned, the issue of Nigerian Content Development Monitoring Board is one institution that is fighting for proper placement of Nigerians in all sectors of the economy. They are not restricted to the petroleum industry. So everybody here, I know that we should drive it with the NLPC. That these people are properly empowered. Because if you are talking about the other sectors like the Jamaica and all that, as soon as this act is amended, we will be able to drive it well. So the one they are talking is not to instruct anybody. So it is you and me who need to salvage the situation, not themselves. But for example, you made mention that the leadership of the committees must be part of of course, in the House. That is what it should be. And I also believe in the present leadership, that is what it's going to be. But we members here must give them the necessary drive, the necessary assistance
if they must see the light of the day, not just for chairman to do. Because chairman, they must certainly have nominees, but the other members of the committee are ready to help them. So the board is in our court, not just left for the two chairmen. So that's the point I want to help the chairman is that we must be aggressive on our own parts. We must help the chairman to get, because it is to get to a point, there will be leadership interfacing with the petroleum leadership in the committees. It is what we are able to drive that they are representing. It is what they get from the floor that will inform their judgment. So you are being there have a major role to play. It is very, very important. The other politics, of course, you should understand that when these people are wanting the Nigerian factor in all these things, they are trying to save costs. It's not everybody who are fighting corruption, but I'm sure that not everybody that really want to fight corruption. But this is where we need to show ourselves what the government is making pronouncements about. If not, I think we're just playing, and we really need to do certain things to ensure that the reports we are getting about Nigeria is not what it is. If not, Transparency International will keep placing us where they are placing us. It is very, very crucial. Chairman, support you too.
Distinguished colleague, distinguished senators, honorable colleagues. I just want to call our attention to something. Looking at the companies that benefit from the local content form, I can see that SMEs that are not contributing are not benefiting from this, and I believe that the strength of every nation, are the SMEs. And if we are working towards pushing the DID, I want to call our observation to the importance of giving the opportunities to grow our SMEs, because if we are only limiting the benefits of the local content to the big companies, I believe that we are killing the SMEs and also stealing innovation in Nigeria. And I believe this is the greatest thing that can affect people that can help us as a nation if we give the necessary support to SMEs, and that see SMEs as the strength of the nation. So I am only giving observation to this, how we can be able to make provisions for the growth of SMEs in the nation. Thank you.
Distinguished senators and the honorable members of the House of Representatives, I greet all of you. Let me seek leave of the House to stand on existing protocols so I can save precious time and zeroing the business of the day. Let me quickly thank the organizers of this resourceful event for the singular honor of inviting me to make this presentation before a highly distinguished audience, particularly for understanding. I understand that many senators or members are not themselves lawyers, but by virtue of being a lawmaker, you're a lawyer. Let nobody deceive you. You're a lawyer yourself by virtue of office. So you don't need to be called to the bar to make laws. So please let us get this mood so that we can fast track the position. I've made the paper available. So the paper will be distributed to you and we'll go through it, because it's supposed to be an interactive discussion so that we get to know why this particular project is on board and take some things home in discharge of your real functions. I'll segment the papers in different forms and I will take it according to what we have mandated to discharge. First, I will deal with the introduction and background to the NOICD Act. The Nigeria Oil and Gas Industry Content Development Act No. 2 of 2010, otherwise known as NOICD Act, is a reactive legislation. Born out of the recurring imperative to addressing certain observed mischief inherent in the operation of Nigeria's oil and gas industry. It is a major legislative attempt by the Nigerian government that asserts and exercises sovereignty over her mainstay natural resource, that is oil and gas. Natural resources found in abundant commercial quantities in Niger Delta of Nigerian territory has remained in Nigeria's cash cow over the years, accounting for over 89% of the nation's foreign exchange earnings. Yet, the huge earnings did not translate to its fair share of the nation GDP, that gross domestic product growth, which is less than 38% than the latest rating by UNDP, or improved living condition for the populace. Nigeria indeed has been earning huge petrol dollar from various petroleum exploitation arrangements such as joint venture, production sharing contracts, sole risk, and other contract variants arranged with major partners in the upstream sector as exploration and production. Paradoxically, the huge nation's earnings are not much compared to the capital flight from the economy through repatriation of earnings by our counterpart foreign operators who dominate the upstream sector of the oil and gas industry. Taking home, much foreign exchange earnings are coming not only from the major contract proceeds, but also from other ancillary and tangible operations and activities, ranging from material supplies, fabrications, logistics, labor, employment, and various other support activities in oil and gas operations. What we are saying is that despite Nigerians' interest in getting money only from the sales of the crude, we have not looked at other areas where our counterparts, operator partners, foreign partners are earning more terms. That we only earn more from the exchange of the naira, from the dollar sales of the. But when it comes to other ancillary, we are still not getting it, and that's why where the dichotomy is from the bridging the gap with the internal generated activities from the oil clusters. Then achieving a paradigm shift by asserting some appreciable level of control of natural resources exploitation by indigenous participation becomes imperative. In other words, why do we need this type of law? That's what we're trying to get the background with so that we know why that's happened and where we're going, and then be sure that we are on the right track. Interestingly, even the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, the NNPC, established along the line the philosophy of new international economic order of asserting control over Nigeria's oil and gas exploitation and consumption, did not eliminate the impact of lack of local capacity and involvement in the upstream sector of oil and gas in Nigeria. Initially, many countries under the philosophy of new international economic order, which I explained later, that we own the resources. We should determine how it is done. But at the end of the day, you find out that the history of NNPC was based on that philosophy. Yet, over the years, NNPC cannot account to have eliminated the very basis of its establishment. The challenge that we have Nigerians can transit from playing marginal role to being active participants in the key segment of big business of oil and gas and the upstream sector. The urge was by day growing, knowing that the consequential effect of the marginal participation is the huge capital export from Nigeria by the major foreign operators and continued dependence on them for the exploitation of the resources, thereby perpetuating their dominance and narrowing employment opportunities and capacity building for Nigerians who are expected to assume full operational roles in her God-given resources. For me, NOICD Act coming into force is nostalgic and a preemptive reality. As of 1996, in an LLB degree project submitted to the Faculty of Law University of Nigeria under the supervision of ECA Molina, principal officer with Chevron, I had observed that without express comprehensive legal framework for implementation of certain policy concepts in all the petroleum exploration and production agreements, it will be difficult to achieve the policy of indigenization and economic empowerment in oil and gas industry. I noted that although there are avalanche provisions in the Petroleum Act and regulations for transfer of technology and indigenous economic benefits as a part of the policy concepts of petroleum exploration and production contracts, yet effective transfer of technology and capacity building were underachieved without direct legislation on the ways and manners of achieving the policy concept. See Nelson Guaya policy concept with Roma Expression and Social Agreement in Nigeria at the degree project of the Department of Law 1996. So at that time, we researched a law that formed the basis of this knowledge that we have done today. About 14 years later, in 2010, I am glad that the Nudging Act came into address that lacuna. How far it has achieved that objective and suggestion for improved implementation is the foreground of this discourse now. And we start. Nigeria's content development and monitoring is a typical local content policy, which is a strategic move in exercise of permanent sovereignty over our natural resources by a country blessed with natural resources, but with low capacity for exploitation. It aims at ensuring lasting benefits in all ramifications, such as enhancing the domestic industries and generating more jobs and income for the population by compelling operators to recognize and integrate domestic companies, labor and materials in the industry. It has increased economic activities and improved GDP in an economy. The policy allows for involvement of several industries and personnel activities operating not strictly as oil and gas operators, but within the cluster of oil and gas industry, being actively engaged in oil and gas operational processes. So what I'm saying is that it's not just about going directly involved in the oil and gas operation itself, but being involved in the cluster businesses around it. So that is the main aim. So that even if you are not involved directly in the oil and gas operation, you will have support services that are left for Nigerians to be fully and actively engaged. Although local content policy aims at indigenization, but that's the argument in international law, was why you have to put up with local content in your jurisdiction. And I understand that that's why many countries are not yet bold to involve in it because of the fear associated with going to make a bold step. But I will congratulate Nigeria for have taken that bold step along that line and sustain it, because the policy has been seen that the policy by itself is not built to discriminate in international law. Some authorities that have come up with that the national policy is not by itself deemed discriminatory, as it is an exercise of sovereign right of the nation in protecting and enhancing benefits from her natural resources within her sovereign territory. Nudging Act is just a typical example of such inward-looking legislation done in enlightened self-interest of the nation. Like the Cabinet Act in the maritime sector, though that's the only second law that has the same policy. Nigeria's second law within that same philosophical framework of permanent sovereignty over natural resources. So, under the new international economic order. Cabinet law in the maritime sector, the Nudging Act came into handy to address the essential anomaly of Nigeria owning oil and gas resources without her nationals being actively involved in the exploitative processes of the business of oil and gas. You are the owner of something, yet your people are not actively involved in it. Then that questions your legitimacy of ownership. How do you really say you are owner when your people are not actually involved in several segments that generate economic activities for their own survival, so that they don't just rely on government for everything? So economic activities, what the people need, rather than government render money from the oil sales. Now, how did the law address these challenges? The Nudging Act number 2 of 2010, which came into effect on the 2nd April 2010, was promulgated to fill the yawning gap occasioned by absence of comprehensive legal and institutional framework for Nigeria to tap into the technological, industrial, and economic intangibles and capital assets being generated by oil and gas activities and plug sail into the economy for the overall national development. It seeks to increase indigenous participation in the oil and gas industry by prescribing minimum thresholds for use of local services and materials, and to promote transfer of technology and skills to the Nigerians in the oil and gas industry. The Act has comprehensive 107 sections and schedules, and applies to all operators, contractors, and entities under any form of arrangement involved in any project in oil and gas industry. The Act takes precedence over all existing enactments and laws in respect of all matters and operations relating to Nigerian content in the sector. The primary purpose of the Act is to emphasize and protect the Nigerian content, as it were. That is, give Nigerian enterprises or persons preeminence and economic opportunities in activities carried out in oil and gas as simple as that. So to give Nigerians enterprises, that's Nigerian companies or persons, preeminence and economic opportunities in activities carried out in oil and gas industry. The provisions of the Act are to be implemented and managed by the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board, NCDMB. I'm sure they are here to fully represented by the Executive Secretary and his team. Now, how did the law achieve comprehensiveness in bringing every activity that persons into its preview? Certain keywords such as operators, alliance partners, project promoters, contracts and services, all projects, any procurement, etc., were deployed by the Act to achieve comprehensive coverage of persons and activities involved in obligations imposed. So it does not give room for any maneuvering. So whether you call your own, by whatever name you call your own contract or your own arrangement, the law says that once you are operating, once you come into a transaction related to oil and gas, they are captured by that law. To that extent is well conceived in this comprehensive coverage. Essential provisions were made in the Act to achieve these overall objectives of promoting the involvement of Nigerian companies in oil and gas activities and use of Nigerian human resources, materials, and services. So, if the use of Nigerian companies to undertake projects, making of Nigerian human resources in terms of employable labor and skills are all there, including services and materials, well, Nigerian goods. So the scope of the Act is set out in Section 1 that apply to all matters pertaining to Nigerian content in respect of all operations or transactions carried out in or in connection with the Nigerian oil and gas. Nigerian companies defined in Section 106 to mean Nigerian registered company where Nigeria hold at least 51% of equity shares. So that takes us to the digitization decree made by President Government then, which was later reversed in 1995 by NIPC Act. The idea was that it should allow people to operate freely in the economy. But this law came in specifically, if you want to call yourself a Nigerian company, that means 51%, that is the real know number very well. That once 50-50, you need one to get 51 over 59 and you win. So that's simple majority. So once you have a simple majority shareholding in Nigerian company, you are entitled to be called Nigerian company for the purposes of enjoying the process of the law in this area. Now, another important thing in that point is that the provision of the Act took immediate effect from the date of commencement of the Act, that is the 2nd April 2010. It did not give room for people to say, oh, let us use overnight to change our legal status, as done during the Land Use Act 1978. Immediately, the Land Use Act was created, so people claimed that their family lands were all customary properties, and therefore they are not covered by the Act. So that is why I want to present the transition period in law to create room for people to adjust and then defeat the main purpose. So the law came in to take immediate effect, and that is Section 6, which says that all subsequent oil and gas arrangements, agreements, contracts, or memorandum of understanding related to any operation or transaction in the Nigerian oil and gas industry shall be in conformity with the provisions of this Act. It will not give room for anybody to adjust, just have to have an automatic entry so that you can support it. I grouped the analysis of the paper into 3 sub-segments to bring out some provisions that deal with some areas that are important for purpose of this review. The supporting provisions for policy objectives are to bring out sections that deal with the policy objectives that support the analysis so far done about why the law has been made. They are found in sections 2, 3, 11, 15, 16, 41, 42, 44, and 45. Go through these provisions of section 2, 3, 11, 15, 16, 41, 42, 44, and 45. You will capture the key objectives of the law. As in the paper available, you get more details of it as important. For those taking notes, those are the provisions dealing with the policy objectives of the law. For instance, if you look at section 2 and sub 3.3, the Nigerian content should form management philosophy for projection, for project execution, and compliance with the provisions of the Act. Promotion of Nigerian content development shall be a major criteria for award of licenses, permits, and other interests in bidding for oil exploration, production, transportation, and development, or any other operation in Nigeria oil and gas industry. And by section 11.3, all operators, alliance partners, and contractors shall comply with minimum Nigerian content for particular project item, service or product specification, set out in the schedule of this Act. So it's trying to say that we don't want to wait for anybody. If you want to benefit by being involved in these other areas from the bid process, you must ensure that you meet the minimum content as specified in the schedule. But section 3.1, the Nigerian independent operator shall have first consideration in the award of oil block, lifting license check, and in all projects or which contract that they are awarded, subject to fulfillment of certain conditions as may be specified by ministry. This guide applies also to the employment of staff and labor, staff training, procurement of goods, materials, and services. So in terms of Nigeria in preeminence, that Nigerian independent operators, there are different categories of operators or workers or participants in the oil sector. There are of operators, that is the people who will likely own oil block. So these operators are to be given first consideration if they are Nigerian companies. So provided they fulfill all of that conditions and also spell it out in it. So section 3.2 makes exclusive consideration to be given to Nigerian indigenous service company which demonstrates ownership of equipment, Nigerian personnel capacity execute such work on land and so on. Then thus exclusive consideration is only given with considerable capacity to perform. Section 3.2 is one of the major challenges of Nigerian indigenous companies serving in oil and gas. But the reason that it did not give you a laissez-faire, a kind of a free way to just come in. You must prepare yourself to come in to meet the standard by showing the capacity to perform. So the key expression there is demonstrable capacity to perform. So if you can perform, the way of having the equipment, the way of having the labor, the way of having the ability to do it, you will be given exclusive consideration. That means if you have an indigenous company involved in oil services in Nigeria, once they meet capacity requirements, they will give it exclusive right to operate. Now, section 11 wants to stipulate that minimum content in any project to be executed in oil and gas industry must be consistent with the schedule set out in the Act. And where any project description is not specified in the schedule, the board shall set up the minimum content level for that project or project item pending inclusion through an amendment of the schedule by the Act of National Assembly. Now, this particular provision must be revisited by the honorable members of the House and which senators here present. I give you that assignment to have a think of that particular provision.
The section provision.
Okay, I thought you said I'm finished, so I know. Okay. I'm looking at it. What I'm saying is because the mandate I have is to review this law and tell you where you need to work on, because that's the only sense. So I said section 11, section 11, 1, 2. Are you getting it? And 4. Section 11, subsection 1 and 2 and 4. I'll tell you the reason why. The provision here, section 11, 1 and 2, is saying that if you want to work, you must work within the schedule
went further to say that that is now subject to the amendment of the schedule. The board will give their own requirement for that particular item to satisfy minimum content. Because the schedule is what where you have put out the list of the minimum content requirement for all different services and items and projects. But it said in case an item operates omitted in that schedule, the board can do so, subject to amendment National Assembly later. But look at section 11.4. He created limited exception to the compulsory compliance with the schedule requirement to the effect that where there is inadequate capacity to any of the targets in the schedule of this act, the minister may authorize the continued importation of relevant items, and such approval by the minister shall not exceed 3 years from the commencement of this act. So it's saying that if you an item is listed in the schedule and is not capable of being, there are no local capacity for it, and that the minister can authorize continuous importation of that particular item within 3 years of the commencement of that. Then where it is, what happens after 3 years and the capacity is still inadequate? Why the 3 years to the commencement of the act, that is 2010? As at 2020, we are still having that challenge, and the law is saying that we will do that waiver for importation as at 3 years from 2013, the commencement of the act. So that 2010, the 3 years expired long ago in 2013. Yet, that's the current law we are operating today. I hope we are getting something. The law says the minister can permit importation of products that are not within the local capacity for 3 years duration from the commencement of the act. The act commenced in 2010. The 3 years supposed to expire in 2013, is it not? Yet, the reality today is that we are still grappling with that issue of inadequate capacity of some areas. So that's why I pointed it out that that particular law is salutary. Has this issue been resolved? You need to review this provision. By section 15, all operators and alliance partners shall maintain a bidding process for acquiring goods and services which shall give full and fair opportunities to Nigerian indigenous contractors and companies. So this deals with people who are getting contracts from the operator themselves. The operator will not frustrate you. That's the mandate in section 15. That all operator and alliance partners shall maintain a bidding process by acquiring goods and services which shall give full and fair opportunity to Nigerian indigenous contractors and companies. So that is one of the points when I get to the benchmarking, I will address it that at that point, if there is likelihood of frustration that you are coming to remove them from their dominance, and at the same time you are depending on them for their word of contract, there are likelihood that they will react by way of frustration to give stringent conditions so that you will not be achieving what you plan. So in that case, section 15 is asking that you should not use your power as a person awarding contracts to frustrate an indigenous company trying to get contract from the operator. They put such job, and the company shall not be disqualified exclusively on the basis that it is not the lowest financial bidder, provided that the value does not exceed the lowest bid price by 10%. This is another interesting area because you all know that in contract bidding there are two major stages, the technical and the commercial. So if you come to the technical, the person survives and meets all, but then financial, they say no, your money is too much. What you are quoting is too much. We cannot do that. We will now use financial bid to defeat you. Even though you have demonstrated you have the capacity as the law requires. But because you can't, like the last speaker said, that you cannot meet the value of money. You don't have you do it at that low price and that you won't make any profit, you won't even achieve the contract. Knowing that the other person has a way, his own way of achieving the same result by financial support, or either the government or some other ways. But you don't have that capacity. But all the things that deny you or likely to deny you the contract that you are now making a kind of a higher financial bid than the normal what the bid says. The law says if your bid is not 10% higher than what is the lower value, then you have the right to contest the contract by law.
Section 41 provides that the minister may make regulations setting out targets to ensure full utilization and steady growth of indigenous companies engaged in exploration, seismic data processing, engineering design, reservoir studies, other facilities, as well as provisions of other support services for the Nigerian oil and gas industry. That's to ensure work quality. He said that look, we will encourage people to get into this engineering aspect of the oil and gas industry that will actually guarantee transfer of technology and indigenous active participation. Because if you are taking rentals of personnel, you will not be okay. But if you are the ones who are participating directly, you will. But then, Section 42 says that the minister may make regulations which shall require any operator or company or his professional employee engaged in the provision of engineering or other particular services in the Nigerian oil and gas industry to be registered with the relevant professional bodies in Nigeria. That means they will not again encourage what? To me, is there evidence of this very important that those who are actually finding themselves in different areas of the professional services in oil and gas industry are actually professionals registered with their respective bodies? You're an engineer, are you Korean, have you gone through the professional skills, have you the certificate of proficiency? Why this area is important is because of the disturbing position taken by the Corporate Affairs Commission. A new regulation made by the Corporate Affairs Commission recently dispensed with the hitherto requirement of certificate of proficiency for the registration of professional association of firms or companies. I have decided because I have a stakeholder in corporate law practice in Nigeria because I need to change that in law school and I've done a lot of products on that. And I find that when the nation say that you cannot walk in and register any company, any organization without minding your proficiency, and that one has been there for a long time in the name of ease of doing business. Distinguished senators and honorable members know that this camera, the new camera, has not really come on board. It's an opportunity to strike it down because this will be completely inconsistent with what this law is saying. How do you expect companies that are not even qualified by any a company coming as an engineering company? There is no evidence that this company is proficient in it. And that's what we are calling with. When people come here in the name of being white men, I have a lot of Spanish friends who come to Nigeria here. I met some of them in the US. And they came here and become former and site engineers. Meanwhile, they're just like, laborers. Because of the white skin, that immediately translated person to be a chief engineer and foreman. Please, let us look at this, particularly by looking at our own law. Why should CAC say that there is no need for you to present certificates of proficiency? So anybody can register hospital or register law firm or register engineering company. And yet this law is saying that the minister can make a regulation telling us that we must be sure that this company actually has the professional skills. Section 44 requires an operator to submit to the board annually a plan certified to the board setting up program or plan initiative aimed at promoting the effective transfer of technology from the operator and alliance partners to the Nigerian individuals and companies. While Section 45 also requires that the operator shall give full and effective support to technology transfer by encouraging and facilitating the formation of joint venture, partnering and developing of licensing agreements for all such joint ventures or alliance shall meet the requirements of the Nigerian content development to the satisfaction of the board. And a lot of challenges are put to the board when we finish the end of the paper, the point I'm talking about, and I'll get there. But the board actually has a lot of challenges. How do we enforce Section 45? Because he's saying that the people should be encouraged. The operator shall give full and effective support of technology transfer. Whereas this person is the one that's being looked at to leave the scene. Do you think that they will willingly surrender to just give you technology transfer merely by legislation? That is a question for the board to see how far are they going to achieve that supervision. As part of the regulation of the further growth of indigenous capacity, Section 41 stipulates that international and multinational companies working through their Nigerian subsidiaries shall demonstrate that the minimum 50% of the equipment deployed for execution of work are owned by the Nigerian subsidiaries. What is saying that if you are a foreign company, because I know where they're coming from, the law original is that foreigners should not own 100%. But with the NIPC Act of 1995, if somebody can come in as a foreigner and own 100%. Yet, under Section 54 Kama, somebody who is a foreign company don't need to have any other thing other than to register a local company and own the 100%. Because what the law is saying is that you just need to have a Nigerian company. Nobody is interested in the shared equity structure, but that you just have a local company. Now, the law, rather than looking at it from a different perspective of it impose 50% ownership of equipment, that if the local company in Nigeria has 50% ownership of equipment, then they can be granted opportunity to operate. But my question is, what is the rationale for insisting on ownership of equipment? Although this provision aims at discouraging paper subsidiary companies merely set up by foreign companies as conduits without adding value to the GDP, it is doubtful whether this is an appropriate provision to deal with this such an anomaly. What the error that we have found was that the foreign company got paid here as a subsidiary in the name of fulfilling Section 54 capital. And they are just paper company, portfolio company that are not actually on ground. The law was actually trying to aim at that, to discourage that paper portfolio companies, particularly where their foreign owners are brought and they don't come here and they contribute to making money in the name of getting contract. That's okay, but then the question is, if they are to own equipment, will that be the solution to that? To be better, I think, if the requirements are not that of patronizing, is that of patronizing Nigerian companies in business of equipment leasing or rental. Since most equipment in the industry are on lease or rent, and some companies have specialized in equipment lease or rental. So that is trying to affect the business of Nigerian companies that have gone into just equipment leasing. So if a Nigerian company, a lot of Nigerian companies are into equipment leasing, and they are telling the other people must go, it means that they want to just go and buy a phone without patronizing the local bank. And when he wants to go, he can dismantle it or find a way to take it to. So I think they are saying that they are encouraging local work. It's okay. You must patronize Nigerian indigenous companies in equipment leasing or rental. I think I'm making some sense. I have dealt with the aspects of the policy objectives. Now there are provisions geared at implementation of the policy objectives. And those provisions are set out in Section 7, 8, 9, 10, 17 to 24. Those are the implementation. The ones I've discussed before are just declarative. This is what we want, this is what we want, this is what we want, this is what we want. The question is, did not address enforcement, did not address compliance, did not say, how will you see something and now know that the person has complied or not complied? That's the next instance. I hope we are following. They say it's interactive, and I'm begging for your audience. Are we together? So people are sleeping. I still have my inherent power as a teacher to stand there and students sleeping off. I mean, that's the inherent power of the teacher in the classroom. Yeah? Because I don't have my judicial power as a judge to give an order. That's there. So let us begin to engage ourselves, because it's supposed to be interactive and you see where the law is coming from. So that whenever I have a debate in the assembly, you not know where this is coming from, because some people are coming from selfish, protectionist, myopic point of view. But if you know the broad framework of the law, whenever somebody comes and say, no, that's not it, that's not it, let us get it right at this point in time. So the laws that the provisions geared towards enforcement are in Section 7, 9, 10, 17 to 24. A significant way of confirming compliance is to make provisions for implementation. Section 7 requires, in the bidding for any license, permit, or interest, and before carrying out any project in the Nigerian oil and gas industry, an operator shall submit the Nigerian content plan to the board, demonstrating compliance with Nigerian content requirement of this act. That's it. So at the point you are submitting your bid, the board will shine their eyes to see
that the compliances are made. The motion they call labor clause. I will make this point clear because of the points that is involved. The stage of the involvement of the budget excluding $100 million contracts, the labor clause must be included. And the labor clause is just saying the mandating the use of minimum percentage of Nigerian labor in specific cadres as may be stipulated by the board. So section 106, the first labor clause, to make provision to cover all categories of employees, both junior, intermediate, and professional. So that labor clause is the most significant part because of the employment of different levels, both junior, medium, and professional. So unlike section 35 that limited compulsory employment to only junior and intermediate staff. So this important provision on labor utilization should be well monitored by the board to ensure compliance. Effective monitoring and utilization requires adequate use of updates of joint qualification system, JQS. I'm sure they know about it. That JQS is defined in section 106 to mean the industry database of available capabilities in the Nigerian oil and gas industry. So you have to combine to know the number of qualified personnel, type of skills you have behind us, whether you employ them or not, is not the problem. The issue is having data to show that we have this, we have that, so that when it comes to the argument on employment, you will say that we have all that it takes. So now I go to the function of the board very quickly. They should know that very well, but let me just perhaps do some of the major areas of their functions. Section 4 of the board of the Act created this Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board. The Executive Secretary appointed by the President of Nigeria serves as the Chief Accounting Officer of the board and under supervision of the Governing Council of the board. See section 71, 74, 81. That's where the Executive Secretary and the drive the powers and functions. It has a host of statutory functions set out in various provisions of the Act. By section 4, the board is empowered to make provisions that will guide, monitor, and coordinate and implement the provision of the Act. So it is there that actually all this is we are talking about are charged. If you look at section 5, it charges the board with the function to implement the provisions of the Act with a view to ensuring a measurable and continuous growth of Nigerian content in all oil and gas arrangements, projects, operations, activities, or transactions in the Nigerian oil and gas industry. But if you look at section 105, the board that in conjunction with the master has empowered to enforce compliance relevant sections of Coastal and Inland Shipping Gas Sabotage Act in relation to matters pertaining to Nigerian content development. This is one of the best provisions we have seen because of the fact that many Nigerian agencies are overlapping and always quarreling. I can go to court to see all the agencies. It's my function, the other person's function. They start quarreling among themselves. But this particular law has specified that when you see overlapping work between yourself and the master, the area concerning logo content, you should work together to enforce that provision. I think that's clear, and the provision is very clear. I'm giving it to section 105. So apart from the general function of giving effect to the provision of the Act, certain specific functions include approving bids, reviewing and assessing bid process, and the issuing of transaction certificate, processing application for expertise program, monitoring compliance and enforcement of compliance. These are basic functions that the board has. With the omnibus powers to ensure the implementation of the provision of the Act, the board should live up to the expectation of its name in duly monitoring the implementation of the Act. It should maintain a reliable database and be up and doing in effectively monitoring the implementation of the Act by not just relying on paper reports, but sufficiently maintain presence and embark on routine visitation of operators and engage in regular and scheduled close monitoring. The board should not just rely on one paper that is okay. We should do all this because that is the mandate for this long-term objective to be achieved. Rest squarely on the board. It has powers to enforce compliance, inclusive of taking up legal action for compliance and sanction. It is important to note the jurisdiction of court of proposals. Please not that on this particular part. Because when we talk about the implementation, we always look at where trouble comes, where you go to. And that's where the judicial process comes in. So it is important to note the jurisdiction of court for purposes of enforcing certain provisions of the Act. But the National Assembly can also make it expressly clear in line with the recommendation, as we are not sure where to go for different parts of things. Because the problem is always the jurisdictional provision.
When you go to here, they say they don't like police, or come to the other one saying you have police. At the end of the day, you will get frustrated and you not achieve what you intend to achieve. So from the dimension of the provisions, two basic areas involving provision of the Federal High Court and the National Industrial Court stand out. While actions arising from the implementation of oil and gas issues are for the Federal High Court, the provision related to labor and employment are for the National Industrial Court, the NIC, pursuant to section 254C of the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended as the third alteration. Many people did not know about this while acting about the condition, which granted the NIC exclusive jurisdiction on all matters connected or related with labor and employment, not just only disputes between employer and employee. They think that only when the employer and employee, that's when the industrial court is. When you want to enforce labor provision or any law, you have to come to the court to seek support. Now, it is recommended that a joint refresher training or workshop for the judges of the Federal High Court and the National Industrial Court should be initiated and held. This is necessary for cohesion and understanding of the need to enforce the very important provisions of the Nigerian content related in oil and gas industry and shall put the board in carrying out this onerous vital control for the realization of the policy objectives of the Act. Already, the master undertakes training program for Federal High Court for maritime issues in carbon emission. Please, we also know that the master is ahead of you. We have not done this for any of them. So please, those should also do that so that we have great synergy for that. With industrial control. I'm telling you that you are not missing the main people who are industrial control. All these legal confidence are the way you go by the position. At the end of the day, they will say they don't know you. You have done to their brother, you didn't do to them. So the police will enter into it. You understand? We come to that later. I'll guide you how to go about it later. Let me do this one. So now international benchmark, please listen to this part. I'm almost 5 minutes away from the problem. International benchmarking developed and developing countries because this debate continuously remains in the system because they are fueled by the operator that are trying to do. And if you don't understand the philosophy of the argument, you think you are not getting it right. Why are you doing it right? But look at the debate. The countries blessed with natural resources and who do not possess requisite technological know-how and financial capacity had allowed the exploitation of their natural resources for foreign operators under some form of exploitative arrangements and profit and risk sharing, otherwise known as joint venture, or other greater embedded arrangements such as production sharing or risk stories that different variables with the economy. These models invariably resulted in underutilization and peripheral participation of indigenous companies and personnel. That is certain premises. In line with the philosophy of new international economic order, a paradigm shift agitated by the locals prompts the host government reaction with the introduction and implementation of the nationalization policy to give them access and control into exploitation of their natural resources. The key objective is to tilt down foreign dominance with its consequent effect on capital rights and denial of indigenous economic activities around the industry. Where lies ownership? Where they do here, carry their money away, repatriate it, you are also not having anything to do it. So, the challenge of successful implementation of such policies is usually on developing nations. The developed nations already have their own way with that. They are the ones who come to do the exploitation. But we just come and say, okay, we share with our own exchange of food or money that will give us. Lacking capacity of full penetration and control in oil and gas industry, requiring huge investable capital and technological know-how. It is a dicey but bold step to take, as the international oil companies usually view it as a threat and may react with even a boycott, as was the case in Brazil. Brazil witnessed the first onslaught on these IOCs. It was reported that the production of local content required triggered boycott and no investment in the country's oil and gas industry. Brazil was then helped to do away with the strict local content requirement and amend the requirement to pave way for the successful 14th round good bidding on 19th July 2017. I just give a source. What we're saying here is that if we are not careful, the wind of challenge will come here. But that's why they say that the other countries in Africa are coming to understand what we are doing here because the wind of challenge is there. Brazil suffered their own. As soon as they come up with the heavy requirement in local content, the oil majors left them and refused to participate in their bidding process. And they were forced to come back and jettison the content they have had. So we are not ready to do so. We are going to be strong about it. Here lies closing remark at the last version of it. On the whole, Nigerian oil and gas industry content development nudging acts, like any other local content policy legislation, should be benchmarked along the parity for maximization of the national value creation by means of oil and gas value chain through employment, value addition and acquisition of knowledge and know-how. It is within the sovereign nation's legislative competence. Honorable Senator, speech members, please get this point into your head very well because it's very important. That is your legislative powers. But then it is within the sovereign nation's legislative competence to maximize utilization of our natural resources and benefit in all fronts, and not just from rental economy, from oil and gas crude sales. And that is what the Nigerian government did in the Logic Act. As simple as that. And it must stand by it, whatever wind that is coming from the IBCs. On that note, the Logic Act is a proactive legislation, not just providing for the legal framework, but also a institutional framework by establishing the board to take full charge to implement, monitor, and enforce compliance. The board only needs to keep up to the onerous tax and deliver on its mandate. The Act would elicit some form of partner cooperation and offer resistance from either two dominant operators. Nevertheless, it is left for the authorities of the board charged with the function of implementing the Act to realize its policy objective to carry on and be focused on achieving the legislative mandate duly communicated in the Act, while the courts are waiting ready to lend support for enforcement of breaches by non-compliance. Also, it is we senators and honorable members of the House of Representatives who are of these members of the Nigerian Content Committee. I salute you once again. You should be poised and rise up to the oversight mandate and ensure that the intention of the lawmaker in crafting this Logic Act remains alive in its implementation while refining the law by amending it in areas of the observed gaps and lapses. Since the local content policy is not limited to oil and gas, I have also advocated that it is recommended to be extended to other extractive industries such as mines and mineral exploitation currently operating under this regulatory regime. Is there any way you can also capture the other area of mineral and mineral resources so that everything originally the Petroleum Act defines mineral resources, include the solid minerals. But along the line, they were excluded and set up their own law. But right now, they are not organized, they are still operating under this regulatory regime. Thank you all for the rapt attention. I thank you for giving me the time.
Community as a medical doctor. It was very difficult for me, my clinic, to be able to access internship as far as the community was concerned. Even though I was doing my best, but then when it came to accessing that local content as far as that community was concerned, I was never ever considered. And then does this act, does it interfere with the way Nigeria, because we are supposed to put our best foot forward as far as the development of this country is concerned? Thank you very much.
If you want to look at content based and let you use Nigerian materials, Nigerian equipment, and you know by the fact that any of those, then it becomes difficult to meet the minimum content prescribed and scheduled in the Act. So we need to look seriously at manufacturing and support that sector to be successful to support that content. Thank you. The second has to do with how we treat contracts and how we value property ownership. So to achieve what we want to do in local content, you need to be in a position where you can woo investors to come into the country with their resources and invest over time. But when they are afraid that you will not respect the contracts, the terms under which they've come in here to invest, then they will not be here for a long time. Investment costs money, and you don't want to risk your resources in areas where the investment will not be secure. So we need also help in that area. Also property ownership. So most of the investors are afraid that they finish the investment and maybe there will be this issue of indigenization or localization of the assets and things like that. They want the assurance that once they have invested, you will protect them for a long time to come. And I'm not sure, even in the case of Brazil, that Brazil was able to do it alone. We all drive, we desire to do things in country, but we do not own the engine to drive it. Technology is not a natural resource, you can't even explain it. People research, people own it. You need to partner with them for them to come to their country and make that available for you. So at some point, we have to think, do we have to tweak the way we are doing it so that people will be happy to literally come here, do research, bring technology, help us to develop at the best that we want to do. It's something that we need to help with. Then there's also the issue of multiple transition. There's this mystery 100% that everybody is happy from Nigeria and emergence. When we say this one, we say let's start all the business in 2%, we take 2%. Another one comes, we say 3%, we take 3%. Another one comes 4%, so we keep taking those 100% not end. So at some point we become incomplete because of all the confusion that we have. If we want to support, if one local source of your country to be very successful in the country, we have to account those 1 and 2% everywhere and make sure that we are helping them to be competitive globally, not getting competitive. And of course, when you put resources in country to manufacture, you manufacture with a hope of being able to export what you are manufacturing in Nigeria. It shouldn't be a local market money. If you manufacture in Nigeria, and because of all the taxes and everything, then it defeats the purpose, and the investor want to do something money for a local. So we need to look at that. Finally, development of capacity requires a lot of funding. And here the law says if a bid is 10% above the lowest bid, you should consider it. Let's consider a critical project that costs 20 billion, an option. 10% of 20 billion is 2 billion. Who should fund that overage? If the government wants to develop capacity, then consciously we have to say this is a capacity development fund. If it's over, the government will take maybe part of that part, and the investors will take part of that. Otherwise, most investors will delay final investment decision on projects for a very long time because of that cost. So these are things we need to think about if we want to drive local investment. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I wrote that capacity for classroom, not for platform. So thank you very much for having accepted it. I think it was not even good enough. But from the analysis, it shows that they appreciate my quick work I did. I never thought of why. Some of the comments and questions are very well the need for amendments. The benchmarking as the best person at poster, whether it's too low or too high, yeah, without having resistance, official resistance. I'm not saying that there's no resistance, but the official resistance, in the case of Brazil, was an official resistance that people came and said, no, this is one to do local project, back away, and then you can come back to renegotiate. So that gave a lot of bad signal about labor content politics. And that's why most African countries do not want to try it. Coming home to understanding how you are doing without having this trouble that Brazil had. So Brazil together, you and they agree how come their own subsidy and their own way. I think the law was very nice in the middle. They know that, the IOC know that we don't have that capacity really. That at the end of the day, one way or another, we will still get back to them to do this. So it's like they believe that the law is about selling them to buy more, that you still have to slay them. And that's the way I think the
IOCs built the law in Nigeria. If truly we had capacity like in Brazil, I think maybe they would think it's real. But from what is going on now, we know that it's not really good for us to actually carry out those content. From what the more people are saying now, it's clear that they have no capacity actually to implement fully. So they are still depending on the IOCs to do some things. Therefore, it's more or less cosmetic. But I was thinking that the area that will be more focused, not just about getting contract, but the level part of it, opening up employment, would be segmented for. So they focus on the key area that we deal with now. Like in Indonesia, some countries that implemented their own, they try to take it bit by bit. They didn't even notice before they now combined all of them as a whole lot of local content. Right? Now, our own, the answer is that it is not too high or too low. It is acceptable because there are no official existence. Now, the need for amendment by the second speaker is okay. There are several, so I will take it from my brother, the did a lot of analysis. When I come inside, I will address some of the areas that we have raised, which are very, very important. Whether the art has anything to do with local people and how they react to outsiders. Yes, one of the speakers came here with the question of local content within local content. I think that's what I understand from the speech. Did I get it right? Yes, local content within local content. In the sense that while we are chasing the IOCs, the locals are also chasing their own borders, who are also within the same environment. So I told one person about the politics of segregation, that immediately you share from top, you come back here and quarrel again. Because at the end of the day, there will be need for local content within the local content. So I think that is something that law make expressly clear. That while competence is encouraged, that's why I'm talking about the provision, talking about professional provisions. That area are made to show that you have the ability. It's not because they're students because they're not from that area. So because the people who are coming from other areas need the same idea that have competence. And when they go to get local content, we need local content again. Because that's the implication. So give people opportunity for all other people from the same Nigeria. You cannot get independent and fight against ourselves. Because we're getting independent from the outsiders. Then we come here again and call it for local content. So I think it's a very nice observation. Then I think I'm talking about the very first speaker that really showed reactive and proactive concept. Yes, you are reactive in the sense that most legislations are built on reactive philosophy. If you look at the student very well. Reactive in the sense that it is called mischief rule. Are you getting it? There are something that was on ground that is not palatable. You now want to react to that resolution through a law. By that method, we are doing a reactive concept because you have seen something that is not okay. Most legislations in modern time are all on mischief rule basis. There will be a mischief. The mischief is that the dominance is there. You are the dominance. And then you are the owner in quote. But the owner is not having anything. It is not purely a rental economy. The government is receiving oil process, but the people are not doing economic activities. That is the discrepancy between the getting being the highest earning group by something by 89% of the and then having less than 13% GDP growth. No, of course they are keep improving it. I think the local context is working because Nigeria's GDP had increased from the earlier 10%, in terms of local activities. So it means that it's a pass mark of the local content because it's showing that that sector there are also activities of locals there that are now improving. So if you push higher, I'm sure you can balance to 40-something%. Again, so that part is why, but proactive in the sense that a law that holds an issue held back is a proactive legislation. It's a bold step to address an issue and say, look, we have this position, let us use law to cure it. That is a proactive legislation. So it's not out of place to have a reactive and proactive legislation on one position.
because it is contentious. It is not contradictory. Both of them can coexist in a particular legislation. Most institutions are starting from reaction level.
Now, I'll go to another point quickly.
The implementation, that's an answer for us. The extension to solid minerals, I've recommended that, even though I also had it here. If you look at the origin of Nigerian there was no initial demarcation between solid minerals and petroleum. They were all called minerals. Are you getting it? So, but later they started having extractive minerals. From them they have their own laws. But they are all minerals. In the real sense of it, if the effort put in oil and gas, you put also in solid mineral, I can tell you that activity will be very high there. But as I say, it is completely a basic situation now. Because you can't lay down your hand on a particular law guiding exploitation of solid minerals in Nigeria. We with the separate solid mineral ministry, they are still not getting it right because Chinese are going to enjoy some time. There's also many small tin mines everywhere. And these things are not independent. Governments don't own them according to the Petroleum Act, and wherever you find oil, then government owns it. But when it comes to solid mineral, wherever you find it, government don't own it. Are you getting it? So these are areas of harmonization which a single law should capture. Are you getting it? So that is the law as we are speaking today. And everybody can see them in the law books. And we find that it's good for the economy to grow very well, to diversify. Because these are the problems of diversification. You are saying diversify from oil to where? The nearest you can diversify is solid minerals. I don't know of any village that will not have any solid minerals. Again, so if you do so, it will help by having a comprehensive look for being where they are. I can make sure that I just raise where we take value from this environment. And I also thank you very much for the patience, for the joy, and making me feel like I'm an honorable member of the Senate.